welcome everybody to this webinar. And I appreciated what Penny had to say, though she was a little faint. We did have what was an incredible retreat at our home in Pebble Beach with the senior leaders of this organization, all of whom, if they're serious, will be million-dollar earners, part of the $100 million earners that is one of the goals of this great team. We got clearly in our minds what it was going to take to get the organization to $100 million, but we talked about 200 and 300 and 500 and what that would mean and how it would happen. I believe this organization made up the leadership, the people that are on this call. Even if you're brand new, we expect you and want you to become part of the dynamic leadership of this extraordinarily fine organization. We don't have a better team in the company. In fact, most aren't even close. And that's not only because of Penny and Ben, but it's because of the other great leaders of this organization, wonderful people, people that can be counted on to do the right thing, can be trusted. And this is a team of character, but it's also a team of competence. You do things well and are committed to continue to get better. One of those areas that we identified during our retreat, kind of across the board, is almost everybody in this team needed to do a lot better in helping their people get licensed. And so we made a decision to do this webinar. One of the other areas we identified was referrals, the gathering of referrals, and something that I built my career on and had added tremendous success. It makes it so much easier to go wide and to go deep and to keep your people in the business and to help them make money if they become experts in mastering how to get referrals and what to do with them. So we'd like to announce another webinar. This is about licensing. We're going to have a webinar. It's just focused on teaching any of you that need this help, and most of you do, on how to get referrals, how to turn one client into many, how to turn one recruit into many. I started with a prospect list, which was my list of referrals, so to speak. And back in 1980, Cindy and I developed that list back in July of that year. And since then, between 80 and 2018, directly and then indirectly, of course, through that list, we've recruited over 2 million people have been recruited into the industry. And so I am obviously have great conviction about referrals. So we'll take a Monday, 2 Mondays from now. Monday, I think that's the 8th. And in fact, I'm double checking. We'll look at that for our next webinar. And it'll focus on a referral system. So again, we go into October the 8th. 1 week from now is the 1st of October. 2 weeks from now is the 8th of October. Another Monday evening. We'll do it at the same time, 8 p.m. And we will begin the process of making and developing a couple thousand experts on how to get referrals. And so we can help more people and touch more lives. So I appreciate everybody that's on this call, and we'll go from there. I noticed one comment that someone said it's saying the conference is full. It's not. This will take over 1,000, well over, I think it's 2,000 names. So if you get that, just call back in. Or you hear it from somebody else, just tell them to keep calling. Let's go ahead and get started. This first slide shows the comic book hero Superman, pulling his shirt open, which is a famous thing. It's iconic in American culture, and it's symbolic of what this title says. We're going to be discussing how to turn your organization into a licensing superpower. We have extraordinary leaders on this call and teams that are licensing a fraction of the number they should be licensing, and we'll talk about that and about what that means, and let me lead into it. I had a chance here a few weeks ago at a very special car show in Pebble Beach, where we live about a third of the time. Anyway, let me get to the right button. Here we are. to drive a car like this, and it's a $3.5 million car. In actuality, it was a $3.7 million car, the one I drove. It had 1,500 horsepower and 1,200 pounds of torque. That may not mean anything to you, but that's far more than most race cars have. It took my breath away to drive it, and it's the car itself that I drove was something called the Bugatti Chiron. So it's a remarkable piece of engineering, and just like our system is a remarkable piece of engineering. So we have a superbly engineered machine symbolized by this automobile, which costs, like it says, millions of dollars. It's superbly engineered, and yet for all the money and all the engineering and all the technology and all the brilliant people that have combined to make such an incredible automobile, it is wasted without a driver, and it's useless without a key. So it doesn't matter how much it costs, doesn't matter how amazing the technology, it's wasted without a driver and useless without a key. You all know that, right? And our system and our way of doing things is the same. There's a parallel. It's wasted without leadership, and it's wasted without focus on the right things. Because you can be trying to work this system, but if you don't have the key or you're not a good driver, all of what we've done, all of this design, all of this engineering, all these resources, all the literally billions of dollars over the years that have been spent and generated by this thing are wasted for you unless you understand a few things and are focused on the right stuff. So it's interesting in the business, even if you'd only been around a short period of time, you'll notice that we talk about becoming a prospector. That we got to get better at how to meet people and how to turn strangers into friends and how to connect with people and build relationships. We talk about that. We'll keep talking about it. We'll talk about it the rest of our career together. We talk about becoming a producer, how to get in the field, how to present, right? Understand our products, understand how to answer questions to the consumer. All those things we'll talk about, we have talked about, and we'll continue to talk about. We talk about becoming a recruiter, and how to, for those that are building teams. And we talk a lot about recruiting. We talk about the meetings we hold to recruit people. We talk about prospecting as it relates to recruiting. We talk about recruiting our clients, and all of this, the psychology of it, how to sell a dream, how to be a powerful, passionate crusader for helping people and helping families, helping people save money, helping families get protected. We talk about this all the time as it relates to recruiting. And so we talk about being all three of these things, but we also talk about being a closer, kind of part of being a producer. How do you have the conviction and the understanding you need that makes you a person that has some power in your conversations with people, that turn you into a capable closer? It's about believing in what you do for people, knowing how important it is that people do the things we're trying to help them do for their future. So we talk about these things all the time. But the rest of this evening together, and the remainder of this webinar, we're going to talk today about becoming a licenser. And so it's not enough to talk about being a prospector, producer, recruiter, closer. We need to add a fifth thing to that, and we need to keep it there and always make it part of our conversation, and that's being a licenser. There's no way around it. It's one of the critical aspects of this business. It's something we have in this current kind of generation, something we've not been doing very well with. I know how to do this. I know how to keep very high percentages. We ran an organization that was a large organization, and we ran it at about 58% licensing. That means out of 100 recruits, we licensed 58, and that was thousands of recruits. It's interesting how that goes, and I remember, being what it was like after a few years to have 3, then 5, then 6, then 7 and 8,000 licenses and grow from there. And so we're going to talk about how you do this. But I want to get inside your head and your heart a little bit to get you the right attitude and kind of approach to licensing as to why we do it, why it's important, all of that stuff. I mean, a lot of that's obvious. I couldn't pick anybody on this call in the 225 locations we have right now for this webinar. I could pick any one of you at any one of any of those meetings. Shoot, you could have probably come to a meeting for the first time and be listening to this, and I could ask you why is it important to get licensed, and you would come up with some of the most important reasons. It's kind of common sense. Yet I'm still going to emphasize it, right? Because this is part of the process. I want you not only to look at what we're covering here in the terms of what and applying it to you and what you need to do better on a personal level, on a leadership level, but I want you to also remember we're all teachers. We're here to teach our teammates how to do this and do this well and be success stories in our company. And so you've also got to understand how are you talking about this to others, right? Because you've got to duplicate yourself. You've got to become a great licensor, but you've got to build great licensors. And so let's think just very simply, very fundamentally here for the next few minutes, all right, and what a critical step this is, right? If you don't have a license, so we recruit somebody, they're not getting licensed. What's the reality for them? For all of these people we recruit, these thousands of people, when they don't get licensed, they have no business. They generate no income, right? You got to have a license to have a business here. We're a regulated industry, and you got to get a license. You'll end up getting several of them, right? You don't have that, you don't get to get a check, right? You don't get to have money transferred to your account. You generate no income. You don't help families, and no families really helped if you don't get a license. Sure, you can take somebody out, and on their license, they can field train you, and you make a couple of sales, but that's where it ends. It all ends right then. If that had happened to me, we'd have helped 3, 4, 5, 6 families, and then I would have just gone back to doing whatever I was doing, but I got a license. And we kept going, and Cindy got a license, and we kept going. Now we've reached into literally millions and millions of lives because of that. We've helped millions of lives through our teammates, through our company. And it's a marvelous thing, but I had to get licensed, right? Now I had to be a prospector, understand, a producer, a recruiter, a closer, but all of these things wouldn't and couldn't have happened and wouldn't have borne fruit if we hadn't gotten licensed. That's how critical a step it is. You don't have a license, you're never going to get a promotion here. There are no dreams coming true. There's no future. Right? And so a license is a big deal. Think about that. Without a license, no business, no income, no family's help, no promotions, no dreams coming true, no future here in this company. All that we've got, all this engineering, this superb and remarkable opportunity becomes nothing. It's like a car without a key and a car without a driver. It just sits there and doesn't do anything that it was designed to do. We designed this company to help people. We designed this company to change lives. We designed this company to provide opportunity to people who wanted it. People who are coming to this country hoping for a chance to build a new destiny for their family, to have a future without limits. That's why and for who we designed this company. But if you don't get licensed, that doesn't happen. So I want us to think very clearly in the remaining time we have together tonight, very clearly about what it is we're doing. All right. Now, a lot of you in your plan, in your mind for licensing, as it currently stands, your current plan, what you've been doing today, yesterday, and in the past, I have to tell you and challenge you that it's been, for many, a flawed plan. Don't take it personally. That's what we're here to do, to change that, to make it a plan that's effective. You're going to like what's going to happen if you pay attention to the things we're covering here in just the next few minutes. It's almost amazing to me that we can take an hour or less than an hour, talk about something so important and have it have such a dramatic impact on your business and on your life. and on your family's future. I was super excited. I've been looking at my watch all afternoon and all evening, counting down to when I could do this webinar for this team. One, you mean so much to me, and two, I know what can happen when you make this adjustment. It's not if you're going to make it, not this team. This is a team of champions. You will make this adjustment. When we make this move and you start licensing substantial percentages of people, it's going to be mind-blowing what you're going to accomplish. Stuff that seems so hard now, you'll be astounded at how much easier it's become because you'll have enough people helping, all right, to do what you want to do. But let's talk about the plan as it's been in the past. And I'll ask it in the form of questions. Are licensing issues, in other words, licensing a low percentage of your recruits, is that issue solved by hoping, just hoping it'll get better? You get with the team, you have a meeting, maybe you have an emergency meeting, maybe you have a couple of meetings, and you talk about it a little bit more. And that would help. That's certainly much better than nothing. Most of you haven't been doing that. But let's say you do that, and then you just kind of hope it's going to get better. Is that going to work? Is that a good plan? The answer to that is no. Hoping is not a strategy. Hope has never been a strategy. Hope helps us get up in the morning and go do something, but we got to do more than just hope, right? We got to turn it into focus and into action. So here's another question. Are licensing issues solved by just talking about it? Well, we've already just mentioned that, talked about holding multiple meetings. We know the answer to that is because a bunch of you have talked about it and talked about it a number of times. Did that solve the problem? The answer is no. All right, so let's ask another question. Are licensing issues solved by home office administration? Can the home office figure it out? And I'll tell you a little bit of story, same one I told at the retreat. A number of years ago, Joe DePaula became the new CEO and president of WFG, and one of the things that was obvious to him is we needed improved licensing. He, naturally thinking, well, maybe we can fix it, and so they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on new software to get more data about licensing and the process to be able to push that data out to the field, and that's useful. We've made use of it. He paid a guy a couple $100,000 a year to become the chief licensing officer of the company, and they sat around in the home office and they strategized and they talked to a few people in the field and they just thought they'd come up with a brilliant program. And so about that time, Joe said, hey, will you fly back here to Atlanta and will you sit down and look at what we've been working on? I said, sure. And I flew back there and I sat down. And they sat around me at a conference table. I was sitting in at the end, and they were all around the table, and all the people involved in this, the software people, the licensing coordinator, the chief marketing officer, Joe, a couple other senior VPs, and they're all so excited about their new thing and their toys. And they went through the whole thing, and they kind of looked at me expectantly. They wanted me to jump up and down like I was at a Tony Robbins meeting. And they asked me, what do you think? I said, it's not going to work. And when you do that, you kind of drop a bomb on somebody, and a couple of them got angry with me and kind of raised their voices. I said, look, you guys, you can get frustrated with me, but I'm telling you it's not going to work because you can't solve this problem. So, it's because why, right? It's not an administrative issue. That's the home office. Home office isn't creating this licensing problem. They can't solve the licensing problem. That's just all there is to it. It's all it's ever been. So we can't just talk about it. We can't hope it's going to get better. We can't wish that the home office would figure it out. Maybe there's another one. Can we just hire somebody, pay them $15, $20 an hour, have them call new recruits and try and yay, go get it, And so our licensing issue is solved by a local assistant. The answer to that, sadly, is no. Hey, getting some support in the home office can help some. Talking about it, we got to talk about it. We got to hope it's going to get better. That keeps us going, right? We get a local assistant. Maybe that helps, get a little bit more communication. But the bottom line is, you guys, if we could hope it or talk it or home office it or local assistant it into success, right? If it was that simple, you'd be licensing half your people right now. But you're not. All right? The last time I was in the hierarchy business, 7-8 years ago, in the terms of running a base shop and recruiting people and doing follow-up BPMs and follow-up interviews and all that kind of stuff, We periodically do that to get our feet back on the ground of what the issues are facing the grassroots level of our company. I just get back out there. I begin to lose touch. But if people are telling me they couldn't license, because in California especially, it's 52 hours of pre-license requirement and all of this stuff, and that it couldn't be done, and blah, blah, blah. And we recruited over 600 people in about 18 months in the base, and we licensed 52% of them. 52%, not 10, not 8, not 12, 52%. And so this is what I'm talking to you now about. What I'm talking about is not theory to me. When I'm talking to you about what it takes, what you have to do to turn this around and to make yourself a licensing superpower, where your base, your super base, your super team are all licensing very high percentages of their people compared to anything you've done. 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times more licensing than you've presently been doing. We're now going to get into how that happens, right? Because this plan that I have up on this slide right now is not the answer. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Now, we take a low licensing percentage and we ask some more questions. Is this a mindset problem? Is this an operations problem? Most importantly, is this a leadership problem? For most of us on this call, if I was in the base shop issue, right, if I was in the base shop right now, and licensing is my issue, the answer would be, for all of us, right, all the above. We don't have the right mindset about licensing. Some people think, well, it's hard, and we don't burden people with it too much, and English is a second language or a third language, or I want to get them started in the field first, not distract them with licensing, and, just all of these things. You get the wrong mindset, you start making excuses, and worse yet, you go to the next level of operations where you kind of delegate it to some administrative people, not the people that have the level of passion that our leaders do, not the people that are fully engaged emotionally like our leaders are, the people that are running and owning the businesses, but somebody who's just paid an hourly rate, maybe paid a little salary, and we expect that person to move our team. Well, gosh, we might as well hire somebody to do the BPMs, pay somebody a few bucks an hour to do follow-up interviews, pay them to go out in the field for us too, I guess, if we could do that and do it legally with licensing. It'd be crazy, but of course not, right? It takes leadership to do those things. And we could hire somebody just to hold the rest of our meetings, or do all our training, etc. But no, we know better than that. We've got to have our people fully engaged from the beginning, right, in building their businesses, because it's their business and nobody's going to care about it as much. And so we've got to have the right mindset about that. And you got to understand, you do have to have operations and have some follow-up and have some people check on stuff for you and make contact and find where people are. But you've got to be handling most of this. We'll come back and talk more about this, because the biggest issue, and what I told the people in the home office that day when they asked me for feedback, and the reason I told them it wasn't going to get solved by anything they had done or anybody they hired, I said the reason it wasn't going to be solved by them is because they didn't create the problem and they can't solve it. This was a field leadership problem, right? We used to have field leadership licensed over 50%. I built teams and we've licensed over 50%. I've had people in the past coming up early in the company's development that had these licensing percentages that you'd be proud of, but we've slipped. And we've slipped enough that we slipped long enough that we begin to accept that those numbers are the best we can do. Right? We will never accept mediocrity, not as long as I'm involved in that. I'm always going to challenge you to rise above that, because you've risen above it in all the other important areas of your business. And I know you can do this one. I don't think you can. I don't hope you can. I'm not going to be talking about that you can. There's no doubt in my mind, as sure as I'm talking to you right now and I'm breathing and you're listening and breathing, this is going to get fixed, and it's going to be a very, very exciting future because of it. So let's go ahead and have a little bit more of a conversation about where we're headed with this and what it means, right? So let's talk first about the mindset as we think about what we want to be talking about. Your goal, so goals and you're thinking about it, your expectations are part of your mindset. every recruit gets licensed. That's your expectation. We announced something at the retreat, and it was one of our slogans or war cries, 100% of the people, 100% of the time. Our goal is to get 100% of our recruits licensed 100% of the time. That's our mindset. 100%, 100%. Prove it. That's the thing. We're going to prove it. 100%, 100% of the time. Now, human nature will not let us get 100% of the people licensed, right? But the reality is we got to have that mindset, 100%, 100% of the time. Like I can look at our children, help them study, develop right habits, talk to them about the importance of getting good grades, assist in that entire process. They're bright kids. They're going to get mostly, the goal is all A's. And maybe they'll get all A's, maybe they'll get a B or two. But if we don't hold the standard, we're in trouble. And so our mindset is 100%, 100% of the time. 100% licensing, 100% of the time. Prove it. Prove it to yourself, prove it to the team, prove it to the organization, prove it to every new recruit coming on board. That's your goal. That's your mindset. 100%, 100%. So that's your goal, and guess what? Your responsibility looks exactly the same. Get every recruit licensed. So your goal is to do that, and your responsibility and leadership is to do that. And that just now, for those of you listening to this call that aren't a senior associate or are just a senior associate, you're an MD, not an SMD yet. Somehow you think your SMD or other senior leaders are supposed to be making this happen. This is your responsibility. Everybody who recruits a person, it is your responsibility to help, assist, talk to, encourage, support, challenge that person and be involved in the process of getting them licensed. It's that important, right? Well, otherwise, once again, we have this magnificently engineered opportunity, and it doesn't have a key and it doesn't have a driver, right? And so you're the driver, and your mindset is what's going to make this happen. What's your vision, right? Your goal is get every recruit licensed. I mean, your goal is get every recruit gets licensed. Your responsibility, get every recruit licensed. Your vision is an army of licensed, productive people. That's your vision. You're thinking about, when am I going to be at 20 licenses in the team? When am I going to be at 50 licenses in my team? When am I going to be at 100 licenses in my team? When am I going to be 250 licenses in our team? When are we going to be at 500 licenses in our team? When are we going to be at 1,000 licenses in our team? Now, that may be bigger than some of you can think, but there's some of you on this call, you ought to be thinking about, when am I going to be at 2,000 licenses? When am I going to be at 4,000 licenses? When am I going to be at 5,000 licenses? This is the kind of mindset I developed in building this organization, to where we have now tens of thousands of licenses and a full expectation we're going to double from where we're at and then double again. But you've got to embrace your role, right? Just like I have to with the company and with you. Got to be the right thing. So your goal, you notice how I repeat stuff. Every recruit gets licensed. Your responsibility, get every recruit licensed. Your vision, an army of licensed, productive people. And so you look at the process, your objectives, so goal, responsibility, vision, now objectives. You get their AMA. You get their membership agreement, right? They're in the system. You get them in the licensing process. Now, some of you are concerned, well, what about they get licensed, then we have E&O, errors and omission insurance. What if that rolls up to me if they don't get productive? You make sure you have a credit card where they assume responsibility for the E&O. Hey, we cover we cover our offices and a lot of this overhead. We gather all the data, provide all this system, right? That's just part of the opportunity that's given to them. But everybody's got to assume responsibility for their own stuff, and that means their licensing and their affiliation fee. Right? I don't carry that for any other people. When I'm building a base, everybody pays their way. I don't buy your car. I don't send your kids to school, but I'm going to give you an opportunity that's going to allow you to do that and so much more. But you've got to assume the responsibility for these basic and very frankly minor business expenses. We're going to give you a huge upside potential in your opportunity, but you've got to pay your basic expenses. So all of you, that's a leadership issue. You make sure people are paying their way and making that happen. Don't let that be why you stop people getting licensed, right? You need to solve that problem and grow your licensing percentages, and it's not that tough to do. So anyway, you get them in the licensing process. You get them productive. That means we're what? We're out there field training them. The field training gives them a vision of what they're doing for people, how much good it does, how much people need this help, right? But you're also inviting people to meetings. That's how part of getting them productive. We're recruiting and, right, we're producing. And it's a fun thing. But the reality is you're doing all this in a flow. You know, you're doing it all at the same time. I don't take a guy and decide whether he's going to get a license or I'm going to take him in the field. I'm a leader. My job is to lead, inspire, uplift. I'm going to do everything I can to get them both. If somebody decides they're going to dig in their heels and all they're going to do is get licensed, I don't blow them up. I don't tell them they're losers. I've had all kinds of successful people do that, right? And then they got rolling, right? Well, if they're gonna do that, then I'm going to tell them to pour it on. Go get licensed in a week. Go get licensed in 2 weeks. Certainly don't take longer than 3 or 4 weeks, and let's get you rolling, right? And so I like people who want to get licensed. I want them to license and produce at the same time to create activity, right, that's going to fill their pipeline so they get licensed, they have cases to write, great things are happening, they're getting checks in their name, right? We're doing all this at the same time. Don't be a weak leader and think you can only do one thing with somebody. And one other tip here in your mindset. In your thinking, I'm going to work with the individual. And then the last line on this slide, it says challenge and encourage. So I'm going to talk another minute about the individual, and then I'm going to emphasize it again on the next slide. Look, so I'm a co-founder of the company, right? So I'm running a base shop. I've invited somebody to a meeting. They've joined. I have a personal recruit. Even though I'm making millions of dollars, it doesn't matter what my status is. What matters is what that person needs. And I'm going to actually help them get licensed. I'm going to get them into a licensing class. We're going to make sure they do their 52 hours. But the reality is I'm also going to study with them. I'm going to get some samples of the tests, the kind of questions that they ask. I'm going to actually spend some time, literally in my office, come in, sit down with them. We're going to study together. I'm going to ask them questions, then help them learn what the right answers are. I'm going to be involved in their licensing. Even with where I am in the company, I'm going to involve myself. If I'm going to recruit them, I'm going to assume responsibility for them getting licensed. I'm not going to delegate it to an assistant. I'm not going to delegate it to Cindy. Right? Though Cindy can encourage them too, an assistant can help remind them of some things or help answer a few little administrative questions, but I assume responsibility for that getting person licensed. Why? I'm the person who recruited them. Now, it doesn't matter if I was a training rep. The training rep who recruited me, it only been the business few weeks, invites me to a meeting, I decide to join, and he assumed responsibility for getting me licensed. Right? He didn't think it was somebody else's responsibility. He studied with me. When I got my test date, we drove to San Francisco together. I drove, and he helped me prep some more using some of those sample tests. And then I got out, so we didn't have to park. He drove around, found a parking place, waited for me. And when I got it, and I passed the test, I came out. We celebrated together, you know, and we were talking about our dreams being a little bit closer. That was a training rep. Right? Took some time off work to drive me up there. He understood he wanted me to get licensed because he understood I wasn't going to make any money and he wasn't ever going to make any overrides if I didn't get licensed. So we both had a lot of interest in me getting licensed. Is that what you're doing for your people? Is that what each of you do with a new recruit? Do you own them getting licensed? Well, let's talk some more about this. Talk about this process. But that's a mindset you got to have. I gave you a huge tip there for how to turn around your licensing. Right? Have the right attitude, the right mindset, the right vision, understanding your objectives in the process, and then knowing everybody works with the individual. I do not delegate my recruits to somebody else. Right? I pay attention to what's happening to them. If everybody's doing that, and then everybody else supports everybody else getting their people licensed, you're going to have the environment and the culture that's going to be licensing 30, 40, 50% in your organization. So let's consider something else as part of leadership, right? Because we're talking about a remedy here, a solution to this. We all know if we lose focus on recruiting, right? We lose focus on the process of how recruiting gets. We lose focus on getting prospect lists. We lose focus on controlling the point of contact. We lose focus on those basic things that cause recruiting to occur. If we lose focus on it, it drops. Pure and simple, it drops. If you lose focus on production, in other words, how are getting people ready for the field? How our field training, our training in the office, drilling people on their presentations, teaching them about our products and services, how they work, why they work, what their strengths are, how to answer the client's questions. If we lose focus on that process, the sales process, we lose focus on production, it drops, right? We know that as leaders. We got to be doing both of those things, right? The challenge is most of you have not lost focus on licensing. You never, not in the right way, truly had it. The proof is in your numbers. And that's what we're changing right now. You're going to get focused on it and focused on the right part. So I'm looking at the team now. Let's say I'm running a base shop. I'm a new SMD, and I got the right mindset for licensing. I'm holding everybody in that room in a team meeting accountable for their people getting licensed. I challenge the new people that aren't licensed constantly to get licensed. We're standing up and we're recognizing everybody that did get a license, right? We hold meetings only for licensed people that cause the unlicensed people to wish they were licensed, be licensed, could get licensed or were licensed so they could attend that meeting, right? These things most of you have not been doing, right? You've got to take that same level of focus you do on recruiting and production, and you got to make sure that you have the right attitude about licensing, and you're helping every one of your teammates have the right attitude about licensing. And so we are acknowledging people as they're moving forward with their hours, acknowledging people who just passed their tests, and, right, doing all of these things to create this energy, right? Not just energy, but urgency about getting licensed. Constantly talk to people about the records in your organization for getting people licensed. You have somebody who joins and gets licensed and goes and takes a test in a week, right? Now they start to do their hours, or they get their hours done in a week. They study, and they go get licensed. And they do it in 10 days. They do it in 2 weeks. Talk about that to people. Constantly talk about that to people. I'm going to talk about those kind of things in 2 weeks when I'm talking to you about referrals. I always would tell whoever I'm working with to get referrals what the record in our organization was for people giving us referrals, because about half of them want to compete with it, all right? And then I had an accountant give us like 470 referrals, and I couldn't tell everybody about that because I can't sit with a guy and tell him somebody did 470 and makes them give up, all right? But we'll talk more about that in 2 weeks when we're talking about how you build this great referral organization, because that one's even easier than licensing. Right? So you got to have urgency about this. People need to get licensed quickly. Let's be in a hurry. Let's get after it. That helps your licensing percentages. Right? You're focused on it. Everybody's owning everybody getting licensed. Right? You take an interest in people. You lead them. You guide them. You walk beside them during this process. That's actually taken from a song that our little children sing at church. Lead me, guide me, walk beside me. Right? That's what parents are supposed to do. Right? That's what we teammates do with their new recruits. You lead, you guide, you walk beside them. You assist them in every area. You're aware of what their progress is. If they're stumbling, if they're struggling, if they've gotten distracted or a little discouraged, you get right in there and you help them. You uplift them. So you sell out to licensing your people. That's what we're going to finish this part of this conversation about. Then we're going to talk a little bit about operations. You sell out to licensing your people. That's your job. Sell out to it. No way around it. You got to do this. Just like you sell out to recruiting, you sell out to production. Don't make or accept excuses. Don't make excuses for people. Don't accept excuses from them. Doesn't mean you're mean to them. It doesn't mean you're rude to them. It doesn't mean you're obnoxious. Right? People give you an excuse, and you can just ignore it and then keep uplifting them, keep encouraging them, keep challenging them. They make an excuse, you go, well, I love you. You're going to get licensed. I know you can do it. I just ignore the excuse, and we keep going. Fight through it. Keep fighting through it, right? If this is all easy, everybody would be multimillionaires, right? But we're going to change your family's destiny, and you got to get licensed for us to change your family's destiny. So I'm not making excuses for people, and I don't accept excuses for people any more than I accept them from you. The leader's attitude makes all the difference, and everyone is a leader. For the moment you recruit somebody, you're a leader. Your attitude about this makes all the difference, just like my friend's attitude made all the difference. Now, my friend, his name was Gordon, the guy who recruited me, right? Back when we did it, back then, you had to send in a fingerprint card along with your licensing application in order to get a test date, right? And so I had to go do a fingerprint card. But I was just like every other new recruit, just like most people that join the business. I'm procrastinating. I'm losing focus. I get distracted, right? I didn't have much going on. We weren't making much money, right? But still, I was distracted, and this and that and the other thing. And so 1 week had gone by, 2 weeks had gone by, 3 weeks had gone by. I'd given my AMA, but I hadn't done my daggone fingerprint card. And my friend, who was a high school teacher, calls me, and he said, look, I've got to go up to a high school in Mountain View, not far from where you live. We lived in Mountain View then. He said, I'm going to come by the house, and I want to get your fingerprint card. I said, well, I don't have it. He said, I know. That's why I'm calling you. All right, the Mountain View Police Department right now for the next 3 hours has a window where they'll do fingerprint cards for the public. You just got to go in there and pay the little fee and get your fingerprint card. Go do it. I said, well, Cindy and I are going to go run some errands. He says, and I'm going to, well, before I said that, he said, well, I'm going to come up and pick it up from you. I said, we won't be here. We got to run a bunch of errands. He says, I know. So great. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go get your fingerprint card. You're going to stick it in a folder. You're going to put it underneath your front doormat. And I'm going to come by your place, your apartment. I'm going to lift up that mat, and there will be your fingerprint card in that folder. And I'm going to get your licensing paperwork sent in. I said, okay, Gordon, I'll go do it. And I hung up, told Cindy I had to go down to the police department. Where was it? We looked it up, and I went down there, got my fingerprint card, took it, put it in a folder, and stuck it under the mat. That's what my guy did for me to keep me moving. He owned me getting licensed. His attitude made all the difference. Now I got the test date. We started working together on passing the test. I had to read the code book. That's what we used to do back then. Give this 107-page insurance code book of the state of California. We'd read this little book. We'd practice some sample tests and go take the test, right? And he made sure I had the book. He made sure I had some sample tests. Like I said, he got with me and helped. Then we drove up together to take the exam. Think if that were happening in your organization. Think if that was the approach of everyone in your team. Do you understand now how we licensed 58% of our people? We had people get licensed that didn't even want to get licensed because we were so good at getting people licensed, right? And that's the game, right? So your attitude is a big dang deal because here's the thing. You accept low percentages, you get them. So here's what I want you to remember. Don't accept low percentages. You step up and own this process in your organization. Right? I'm not going to make excuses for you. You don't make them for yourself. I don't want you to make them for your teammates or your new recruits. Right? I don't want you to accept them. I want you to be encouraging, supportive, right? Use a sense of humor. Like I said, just don't, this isn't the Army. We just don't order people around. We persuade them. We sell them on it. So you constantly sell your people on getting licensed and the power of that. But don't accept low percentages. You're the leaders. Your attitude makes all the difference. All right. Now we're going to shift to operations. Commit to developing a system, a process. I've kind of been talking about it. Part of that process, of course, is going to be from the very beginning you make contact with somebody. So someone comes to a meeting. You're going to talk about getting licensed in the meeting. You're going to remove the mystique. You're going to tell them it's a pretty simple and straightforward thing, a little tedious, but not difficult, right? And you're going to help them every step of the way. You're going to continue to talk to them in the follow-up. When I'm doing the follow-up interview, I'm going to talk to them about getting licensed. I'm going to talk to them about a few other things too, but I'm going to talk to them about getting licensed. Everybody gets licensed, 100% of the people, 100% of the time, and we're going to prove it, right? So everybody's in there. The person is a recruit. If it's not mine, that person, the recruiter, knows that they're going to be super involved in the process. So let's take it this way. I'm an SMD, and I've got an MD underneath of me, and that MD has SAs underneath that person. Those SAs have reps, and those reps have recruited new people, right? That rep knows it is his or her responsibility to make sure that new recruit gets licensed. That senior associate accepts the fact it's hers or her responsibility to make sure that person gets licensed. That MD understands it's his or her responsibility to make sure that person gets licensed. That SMD understands that's his or her responsibility to make sure that person gets licensed, and that everybody in between has their mind on it. Now, they're going to have their mind on recruiting too, and running the system, right? And having good energy before a BPM, good follow-up afterwards. We're going to learn the whole business. You've got to understand this is part of what you learn. Don't let it overwhelm you. It becomes part of your mindset. It becomes part of your culture, and everything. This is just the way it works. So you talk about it up front. You talk about it in the BPM. You talk BPM. You talk about it in the interviews, right? It continues in all your other follow-up, right? You're talking about it when you're doing the AMA. You're gonna do the AMA and pre-licensing training right away. Some people have them go take the test, prepare for the test and take it, then do the hours. Because when you already passed the test, you make sure you get the hours. I don't care which you do. You just got to make sure they're both happening. It's one process. AMA, pre-licensing, this is all part of the thing. In other words, when I sign you up to AMA, I also sign you up for your pre-license training and your test prep. You're going to do both, right? It's going to be, it's two different charges on your card, but it's one process. This is where we go. You're going to go one process, AMA and prep classes, right? It's just going to be one package. And I think probably a lot of you are doing that, but you need to make sure it's happening every time. And here's where your system really kicks in. Constant communication and encouragement. It's interesting now that we have smartphones and text and email and and all these things, Instagram and Facebook, on and on and on and on. So we have all these things that supposedly allow us to connect with people, and we're doing a lousier job, a weaker job of truly connecting with people than ever before. Ever before. Ever before. And so I want to remind you, right, that this stuff has to be personal. It's got to be live communication. You just can't drop them a text and move them. Anymore, you can drop a text to your child and raise your children. Or you can drop a text to your wife or your husband and have a great marriage. You don't email a great marriage. You don't text a great marriage. And you don't text or email leadership, right? It is regular communication. To a certain extent, bigger you get, the more you're going to live on the phone, like I'm living with you on this phone right now on a Monday evening. Constant communication and encouragement. I hope I'm providing both. Help them fight distraction and boredom, right? It's doing the 52-hour pre-license is not exciting in California, right? Many of you are in other states, but the reality is some of this stuff's kind of boring. Plus, life has all kinds of distractions, and you've got to help them fight those things. People get distracted, then they drift. Just like I was distracted, I was drifting, and my friend got me focused on getting that fingerprint card and getting my paperwork in so I could get a test date. And then he got me focused on preparing for it. Meanwhile, I was out stirring up activity, bringing people down the meeting, recruiting, doing the things I was supposed to do. All right? You work with them individually. I've emphasized that in a previous slide, told you I'd mention it again on this one. This is an individual game. You move people individually. We have great team meetings. We have great leadership meetings. You'll be talking about these kind of things in those kind of group settings, but this is moved individually. It's another reason the home office couldn't do it. It's not software. It's not coordinators. It's leadership. It's the people who brought these people on board. It's the people who are their upline leadership. Right? You're working with them individually just like people worked with me individually, just like I work with my recruits individually. This is what we moved. We made it happen. We didn't leave it to chance. God, I'm excited about what you guys are going to do. I know how good this team is. It's crazy. Right? It's crazy. I just got a message that some people are saying to Penny they're having trouble dialing in. We got 205 on this thing now. It was 238. And so some people have dropped off or merged with other calls or showed up at the office and are listening to it on a group setting. There's no reason why I should be having trouble with the technology. But either way, we'll do it again and again and again, because you're going to get copies of this. This needs to be part of your ongoing training. You need to listen to this because we've recorded it before. And I'm going to do podcasts on this stuff. Other leaders are going to do podcasts on this stuff. You're going to have plenty of resources. But I hope you're taking good notes, because that's going to help you remember this stuff. But again, constant communication and encouragement, help them fight distraction and boredom, work with them individually. This is a leadership responsibility, and passionate crusaders get licensed and get others licensed. So understand, part of what the way you've got to have, this is more under mindset, is you got to have this mindset that you are super excited about what we do to help people. How much our coaching, helping people do a needs analysis, helping them set goals for themselves financially, helping them figure out what they need in protection to preserve their family in case we lose, a precious loved one, what kind of amounts they need to be saving every month to get to the big number they want to become financially independent, all of these kind of things. In fact, my next webinar next month is on your financial independence number. And so you've got to be energized about what we do for people. That makes people want to go get licensed so they can go help people like you are. Right? My guy's excitement about it. The office's excitement about it. The whole company's excitement about that. When I first joined the business, made me want to get licensed and go do something, right, to go help people. This is part of your process, part of your mindset, part of what you're communicating to your people about. To continue this and make a few points, and then we'll wind up. All staff, all reps, all leaders talk licensing. Just like we talk recruiting, just like we talk production, just like we talk closing, right? All staff, all reps, all leaders talk licensing. The license flow. You have your pre-licensed requirement. You have your test prep. You take the exam. You pass the exam. You receive a license. You go through the appointment process. Everybody makes sure that they're ready to assume responsibility for their E&O and their affiliation fee, right? You get all the credit card for that stuff that's necessary. You get out in the field, right? You make a sale. You get paid. That's the process, right? And if you have trouble staying focused on this, I would make sure all those bullet points I just listed on this slide was part of your written plan. That is something you reviewed every day, a couple times a day. You made sure all of this was going on. It's hard to keep your focus if you don't have it in writing and you're not reviewing it regularly. We talked a lot about that at our leadership retreat. I think our leaders came out of there from this organization more focused on that, having clearly defined goals and a written plan to achieve them, and this should be part of the written plan. One of your clearly defined goals should be to license 30 or 40 or 50%. You maybe can't believe 50 right now like I can. I don't have trouble with it because we've done it for so many years. But you may struggle with it. You may be doing 10. 30 sounds like it's on top of Mount Everest. So you put down 30. You get this stuff in writing, and you start working on it, and you watch. You're going to go to 30. Then I'm going to try and convince you to write 40 into your goal, and then 50. Right? We make something really special happen. Because the bottom line to this is, I want you to transform your business. So we take the total number of recruits this organization has, and we just go crazy with it. Right? I mean, we really make something happen. This team, over this next year and 2 years, double, triple, quadruple, 5, 6, 7 times your licensing of what you've got right now. You think about it, you recruit 10,000 people. You license 10%, it's 1,000 of them. That's a shame. But you recruit 10,000 people, you license 30, 40%, 4,000 people. Now, if you'd say at 10%, you got to go recruit another 10,000 to get 3,000 licensed. That means you got to take 3 years, 30,000 recruits. Man, when we've done 30,000 recruits, I want you to have 12,000 licenses, 15,000 licenses. You're good enough to get them. You're good enough to license them. That's an absolute statement of fact. If you're good enough to get them, go through this process and get recruits, you are certainly good enough to license them. Just haven't kept your focus on it. Haven't had a system and a mindset about making this happen. So this is the last slide. Action items. You're not licensed. If anyone on this call is not licensed, get licensed. Right? This is something you've got to do. We want you part of our licensed organization. You're the backbone of the organization then, and it's all the difference. Team leaders, checkoff list. Get your head in the licensing game. Next, determine exactly what your current licensing percentage is. We had everybody show up at the retreat with our current licensing percentage, right? And we had conversations about it and how to improve it, right? Establish your team goal, somewhere between 25 and 50% licensing. That's minimum standard, somewhere between 25 and 50. I wasn't accepting anything with that senior leadership team last week less than 30, right? Establish your team goal. Every recruit has a licensing checklist. Everybody joins, and they have, right, in paper, certainly electronically, both would probably be a good idea, right, that they've got something they can put up and look at all the time. You don't put it up electronically all the time. They can, of course, print it, but the reality is you want it in front of them. Licensing checklist, what they've got to go through, what they're doing, and what their priorities are, how to stay on top of it. But every recruit has a goal date for licensing. In other words, not only, and I'm doing that in follow-up interview, right? Everybody's coming out of there with a goal date. If you've let that slip, get with all your people that aren't licensed and help them. You make sure every one of them has a goal date for when they're going to be licensed, right? Then they know if they're late or not, or if they need to have more urgency, right? Every upline personally encourages licensing to their teammates. Most of you don't have teams so big you can't do that, right? You need to make that happen. Help each manage their pre-license hours to get that done. All progress is recognized at all events. You're constantly acknowledging people, moving toward licensing, getting licensed, making their first sale, getting their first income, making their first $1,000. All these are milestones. Invest the one-on-one time to make this happen. Invest the one-on-one time in your people to make this happen. Now, a lot of you are investing one-on-one time, but you're not focusing on this. So it slips. And my challenge to you is step it up. Step it up. Bring your A game. Take these action items and move your team. 100% of the people, 100% of the time. Time to prove it. Time to step it up. If there's any team I've talked to about this in whom I have confidence, right, it's this one. Because across the board. And so I appreciate that you got on this call. Some of you, it's late in the evening. Some of you move stuff around to be part of this hour. And I respect you for it. And I'm grateful for it. I do not take it for granted. I admire you. All right? And I love you because of it. Now, Penny, I'm about to unmute this call. So everybody that's got background noise, settle down. All right? If you haven't muted your phone, *6 it. And that'll solve that problem. But, Penny, I'd like you to make a comment. I haven't unmuted you yet, right? But I'm about to. Where, Penny, maybe we conclude this with a couple of comments. And I'm excited about doing a referral webinar with you here in 2 weeks. Okay, Penny, I'm going to unmute.
The conference has been unmuted.
Penny, you're live.
Thank you very much. Yes. Rich, I just want to let you know I was at you as I listen to you. I get all excited. This is my 24th year in this business. And interestingly that right now we have about close to 5,000 insurance agents right now in our organization. 24 years in this business, 5,000 insurance agents, and by licensing we're about 8% or 8 to 10%. Some ratio a little bit better. I think average as a whole about 8 to 10%. And then we will be able to accomplish 9 people who make $1 million. We have a lot of people make a lot of money in the organization. One of the said that we are very proud because of you. We are one of the finest. We are one of the finest organizations. Imagine, I was just calculating. Imagine that we move this into a 30% or 50%. So 24 years for me to do about 5,000. If we can move it, we can move the licensing. Right now we are averaging about 1,000 a month, which is about 12,000 per year, recruiting number. If we can just, let's say minimum level, we license about 30%. 30% of the 4,000 is 4,000. So that whatever I did in the last 25 years, 5,000, I can do it in another 1.5 years, another 5,000 new legend people in the organization. Meaning that in less than from now until 2 years, next 2 years, the organization will have about 10,000 licensed agents. And as we know that if we have 10,000 licensed agents in the organization, we will be bigger than New York Life. We will be bigger than New York. New York Life have about 7,000 to 8,000 organizations. It is interesting. Somebody like myself, Rich, that came from Malaysia, doesn't come from insurance background, and then join this company, be able to get to know you and Cindy and all the leaders in WFG, and we become who we are today because of your great leadership. But we still have a lot of holes that we can patch by just fixing the licensing ratio. Imagine when you have 10,000 licensed agents in one organization, we will increase tremendously on the cash flow for our organization. Many people can accomplish what I accomplished in 24 years in maybe about 4 or 5 years, and that is exciting. I think. And then we haven't talked about referral yet. We are organization. We know we continue to do what we are good at. We know how to provide solutions. We know how to do a good business. Just imagine, I just get excited. You know what? 30% to 50%, and the licenses are 50%, we will have 10,000 licensed agents in the next 2 years. That is exciting. So I want to let you know, I appreciate you. I'm excited about all the leadership from the council, from all the CEOs, and all the EVC that we have in the organization. People are so engaged. I listened to you for the last 24 years, and the last week constantly it goes to the heart, it goes to the every single our mind just blow up because of this whatever you share. So we want to let you know we appreciate you. If we do it right and we need all the help from the organization, we need all the help that who are in this conference call. Some of you cannot get a conference call. We will try to set up recording for you. I'm excited. Many people are going to get help. We're going to provide a lot of financial independence to a lot of people out there. And appreciate you, and I know it's late also for everybody, and Rich Thawley and Cindy Thawley, you are the blessing from the sky for every single one of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Penny. It is mind-boggling to think that in 24 years you have 5,000 licensed people, and there are people on this call that will have 5,000 licensed people as they get their act together here in the next 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. And that this team will move to 10 and 15,000 licenses and beyond that over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It is very exciting to be participating in this process with all of you. We got some big stuff to do. Anyway, proud of you all. Thanks for being on this call. We'll call it a night, and thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Rich. Good night. Thank you. Good night.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Bye.
The chairperson has disconnected.